everyone, and welcome to the second career campus panel that CSPC is holding. I am joining you from Washington, D.C., the unceded land of the Anacostan and Piscataway people. And I also want to start this panel with a moment of silence for the 215 bodies they uncovered in Kamloops, British Columbia. So if you could all join me for 1 minute. Thank you. So as I said before, I thank you all for joining us for the second career campus panel, this time looking at what a federal government career looks like in Canada. I'd like to remind everyone that the first part of this panel will be recorded so that you and others can reference it in the future. The Q&A session will, however, not be recorded to encourage you guys to ask questions freely of the panelists. And should you want to, raise your hand and come on camera and ask the panelists directly, or if you prefer, ask your questions through the Q&A, through the chat line. So I am Alessandra Zimmerman, a program manager at CSPC, as well as the executive director of a startup in Washington, D.C. And I would like to introduce our 5 panelists and then have them talk a little bit more about their careers. So our first panelist is Olga Pena. Olga joined the Canadian federal government through the MyTax Science Policy Fellowship Program. Currently, she is a science specialist at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency in the science branch. She is also part of the leadership team of Equity and Diversity Forums at CFIA, as well as the co-chair of the Women's Circle. Following Olga, we will have Simon-Pierre Demers. He is a senior advisor in the Official Language Community Development Bureau at Health Canada. He began his professional career as a research facilitator at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Ottawa. And then he worked about 5 years as a strategic research initiatives manager in the office as the vice president of research at the University of Ottawa before entering federal public service. Afterwards, we have Shukla-Jones, a senior policy analyst with the Government of Canada. Currently, she works with the Privy Council Office. Prior, she spent 14 years at Health Canada, supporting scientific, regulatory, and policy programs. And she also recently has a new position that we will hopefully be hearing about. Then we have Emmanuel Mongin, the Director of Strategic Policy and an Analytics Directorate at the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. So prior to joining ISED, Emmanuel was Project Director at the Council of Canadian Academies. And then finally, last but not least, we have Edna Matta-Camacho. She is an assessment officer at the Therapeutic Products Directorate at Health Canada and is on a selection of subcommittees. So for all 5 panelists, I would like to first have you go through what your title is and what you do in this role. And if some foreshadowing on how you got there. So Olga.
Thank you, Alessandra. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the land where I am located, which is the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to the time immemorial. My name is Olga Pena, and I'm here today as a woman, a mom, an immigrant, and a scientist. And I am not representing my current employer. My personal views and opinions presented here today are solely based on my understanding and experiences lived through my career. So to provide you with a sneak peek of what it means, this career path, I would like to go back first to where I was born and raised, Colombia. I come from a province in the central region of Colombia that is called Tolima, that is surrounded by all the Andes cordilleras that surrounded the country. I'm from a very small town called Chicoral, and I did all my elementary and high schools in this region. Thanks to the efforts of my parents, which come from a low and middle income family, I was able to attend university in Bogota, the capital of the country, in clinical microbiology. This was actually led me to my first interest on scientific research, including immunology and infectious diseases. And thanks to some of the programs that were initiated by Colciencias, which is the equivalent of CIHR and NSERC, I joined the Young Investigator Program, which allowed me to do some initial training on research projects. This led to more opportunities. Moving on, I went to the States. I worked in different areas, genetic diseases. I did 2 years in St. Louis, Missouri, working on this, and then I did cancer immunology in California, Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. But my passion was always, again, towards the area of immunology and infectious diseases. So I ended up doing my PhD at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. I focused specifically on sepsis and understanding the immunopathology of this condition. And that led to the discovery of some biomarkers, which were the ground basis for the development of some diagnostic tools. Moving to that, I also did a postdoc in Australia in viral infections. And we moved back again to the States, to Canada, to Vancouver to work in some research management positions at the University of British Columbia. So having said all of that, I always have a very high interest on the impact that science can have in society and how we can do that through policy and programs. So I developed an interest in this, and that's what led me to apply for the MITAC Science Policy Fellowship. This, together with my passion and my work on international collaborations and science diplomacy, I was offered to work on a very specific project that was to lead an international file, which is called the Biosafety Level 4 Zoonotic Network. This is a network of 17 government organizations that basically have human and animal health mandates to support and the high containment laboratories. We have been doing basically through these networks to promote the advancements in these areas. One is advancement of research scientific training, scientific excellence, different areas in institutional cooperation and international response. And because this is mainly focused on high containment and high consequence pathogens, this has been a very busy year after the COVID-19 pandemic. So yeah, I'll just stop there, and so we can have more time for the other panelists to express their career paths. Thanks.
Okay, Simon.
Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Hi everyone. D'abord, je voudrais remercier le CPSC pour cette invitation. Je vous encourage fortement à poser des questions en français si vous le désirez, or ask them in English. I hope that my participation here can provide at least a few tips and insights, and maybe some food for thought for future scientists to morph into federal government employees, and hopefully have a positive impact on the science and science policy in this country. So I'm currently working as a senior advisor in program delivery. Donc, je suis conseiller principal en exécution de programme au bureau d'appui aux communautés de langues officielles. So, in the Official Language Community Development Bureau. Santé Canada, donc, ça tombe sans surprise sous le portefeuille de la santé du gouvernement fédéral, qui comprend d'autres départements, d'autres ministères, d'autres agences, dont l'Agence canadienne d'inspection des aliments, l'Agence de la santé publique, le Conseil d'examen du prix des médicaments brevetés, les instituts de recherche en santé du Canada, Major Health Funder, and of course, Health Canada. So a little bit about the office where I work. So we're in the Official Language Community Development Bureau, and we coordinate the implementation of Section 41 of the Official Language Act, Part 7, which aims to enhance the vitality of official language minority communities across Canada. Elle sert à appuyer leur développement, ainsi qu'à promouvoir la pleine reconnaissance et l'usage du français et de l'anglais dans la société canadienne. In a nutshell, I'm working as a project and program manager, so a type of position. So, c'est de la gestion de projet, de la gestion de programme. Le programme, c'est le programme pour les langues officielles en santé, the Official Language Health Program, that has 3 pillars. So, the first pillar is training and retention of health professionals, c'est-à-dire la formation et le maintien en poste des professionnels de la santé. So, in this capacity, in this pillar, Health Canada provides support to post-secondary training institutions in order to improve the availability of bilingual health service providers across the country, and specifically in regions where the needs of official language minority communities are the greatest. Alors, un exemple est le Consortium national de formation en santé, le CNFS, qui comprend un secrétariat national et 16 établissements postsecondaires qui sont membres en dehors du Québec et qui offre plus de 100 programmes de santé en français dans 8 provinces et collabore avec les établissements de santé pour offrir des stages et des placements à des étudiants. McGill University offers language training to health providers currently employed in Quebec's healthcare system, as well as bursaries and internships for integrating health professionals in regions where there is significant need for English language health services within Quebec. Second pillar, le réseautage en santé, so networking in health. Les réseaux de la santé travaillent avec des divers partenaires afin d'élaborer des solutions concrètes pour améliorer l'accès aux services de santé pour les communautés en situation minoritaire. Donc, les destinataires ciblés pour cette composante sont la Société en santé en français, la SSF, avec 16 réseaux répartis dans toutes les provinces et tous les territoires, sauf le Québec, pour les communautés francophones en situation minoritaire hors Québec. And it includes the Community Health and Social Services Network, CHSSN, which has 23 networks across Quebec for English-speaking minority communities. And the third and last pillar of the program is the Health Services Access Projects, alors les projets d'accès aux services de santé. Projects under the current funding phase will use innovative approaches to improve access to health services. La SSF et le CHSSN qui fournissent des fonds pour promouvoir des solutions novatrices sous les composantes suivantes, soit l'intégration des ressources humaines en santé, le développement de la diffusion de connaissances et l'amélioration de la santé des communautés. And so I'm just going to get into sort of my career trajectory. I don't think there's any such thing as a typical career trajectory. I think every experience you go through teaches you lessons that can be applied to future endeavors. Yes, it's important to follow your dreams, definitely, but don't do so blindly, if I can offer some advice. You should constantly seek out opportunities for branching out. Ça peut vous aider à découvrir des intérêts ou des aptitudes pour d'autres domaines d'application aussi. So, sort of a little trajectory that I've noticed is that, so currently I'm working for a research, more health services, but a funder. And my background comes from academic research. So starting at the lab level, at the individual laboratory level, I then had the opportunity to work for the Faculty of Medicine as a research facilitator. So sort of going from individual lab to seeing what happens in the entire Faculty of Medicine, and then moving to a role in the Vice President Research Office within the same university. It opened a lot of doors to seeing all the different types of science that was practiced. So going from sort of single PI led to multidisciplinary types of research and even interinstitutional types of research. And now sort of following the trail of research funding to the funder. Alors, j'ai toujours eu une attirance pour l'aspect intellectuel de la recherche, une facilité avec la rédaction, avec la communication des résultats et avec l'aspect bureau et administratif de la recherche. I've always had an ease and at times maybe borderline activism, or at the very least science advocacy, for example, through participation in some of the Evidence for Democracy organized events. I'm a strong believer in highlighting the value that science and research bring to society. Scientists have a voice and we should use it loud and clear. I have a number of research publications and sort of the research background, fellowship writing. So a lot of fellowship writing and grant writing really helped in obtaining the first professional position, if you want, sort of outside of academia, beyond postdocs. And I would say mon implication dans la CPSC, dans le CPSC dès 2011, tout d'abord comme bénévole et ensuite comme organisateur de deux panels, deux groupes de discussion, m'ont aidé à élargir mes horizons en politique scientifique. So I organized a panel at the CSPC in 2012 on fundamental research as a driver for long-term Canadian innovation with a UK perspective from the Royal Society and with Genome Canada. And in 2013, a collaboration with the Black Hole blog and the MyTax. It was entitled Training the Next Generation of Scientists, where I invited the ministre Pierre Duchesne, le ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur, de la Recherche, de la Science et de la Technologie du Québec, pour le lancement de la politique nationale de la recherche et de l'innovation du Québec. J'ai poussé et insisté que le Québec et le français prennent leur juste place à l'intérieur du CPSC. So in that regard, and partly, if not a lot, due to the bilingualism that I have from a tender age, combined with my scientific and administrative training, those all together have led me to this current role.
Okay, thank you. Anu, you're up next.
Thanks a lot, everyone. So I'd first like to acknowledge the land that I'm on, which is that of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. The reason why I want to acknowledge the land is because I truly am inspired by the Indigenous people of this area, the resiliency, and as well as you'll see through the narrative that hopefully will be conveyed, resilience is something that is really important to me. And I think it's really important as we serve Canadians as a public servant. May also marks the South Asian Heritage Month here in Canada. I am South Asian, Asian Heritage Month. I happen to be South Asian. And next month marks Indigenous History Month as well as Pride. And so those are aspects to policy that are really important when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and what this means for delivering policy for Canadians. So my journey is, as Simon had mentioned, there's no one that has a typical journey. I started off at the University of Toronto doing an interdisciplinary degree, which also included a little bit of in-depth learning in English as well as in religion. And so that was really interesting. That also set the tone for the master's that I did in neuroscience here at the University of Ottawa. And when I found that my funding was running out, I thought, oh goodness, I need to find money to pay for rent. And that led me to applying to all sorts of positions and all sorts of places. And I got a call back from Health Canada. Health Canada asked me to come in to interview for a lab technician position doing work with RNA in a food virology laboratory in the food directorate at Health Canada. So that was fantastic. I thought I bombed the interview. Turns out that I nailed it and went on to work in science at the federal level for a few years. And so that was really educational. It was really great to work on and learn about regulatory science and what that means and how that impacts policy and the public. While in that scientific-based position, I learned a little bit more about policy and what it means to create policy and how evidence-informed policy actually looks like, works, and how it impacts people. And that led me to a curiosity mission where I took an assignment in food policy. Food policy is particularly interesting because you get to take science and you get to wrap it up and think about how it applies to everybody that eats, which is pretty much everybody, because everybody needs to survive in some way. After a few years there, and after having 2 children, I also ended up thinking, maybe I need to expand a little bit further. My interests allied in emerging science and technology, which comes from the scientific background. And so I applied for some jobs, won a competition, which is something that is done in the public services. You compete. And hopefully we can get into more of how we actually get into the public service and how we move around at some point. So I competed for a position and won one where I looked at emerging science and technology policy across Health Canada. And so that's at a different space within Health Canada called the Strategic Policy Branch. While there, I did some fun work, and then I was asked to go to the Health Products and Foods Branch to lead this foresight work, to look at what does the future landscape of health look like, and what does it mean for the regulatory system for foods, drugs, and devices. And so that led to some interesting work, and I thought, all right, I'm kind of curious about what else is out there. As I looked around me and I looked towards management, I saw that the common element was that people who moved around and moved up tended to have broader experiences. And so I applied and was admitted into a program with the Canada School of Public Service and the Policy Community Partnership Office called the Cross-Functional Policy Mobility Program, which allowed me to get some diverse experiences across government. That led me to working at the Strategic Policy Branch at Indigenous Services. That also led me to work at to work on some financial issues at the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, and I'm currently in the Economic and Regional Development Policy Operations Office at the Privy Council Office of Canada. The Privy Council Office is kind of the last stop of challenge function, which is a fun, fancy term to say, did we get this right? Did we get these policies and these ideas right? Have we thought about everything? Have we thought about what it means for public policy? What it means for Canadians, what it means for the fiscal framework, what it means for all of the initiatives and the priorities of the government of the day. And so that's the large bulk of what I do, is perform this challenge function to support departments and their ideas and their initiatives. It's also to support cabinet committees, to support the Prime Minister in terms of decision-making, to support the budget process in terms of making sure that a lot of considerations are taken so that the decisions that the government makes are well thought out. It's a pretty fun job. I won't lie, it is a little bit busy. You'll see me look at my computer on the side. So all of this also occurred in the context of what some of you may also acknowledge in your lives, or maybe the lives of others that you see on their journeys, which is mental health challenges. And so that has been a journey along the way as well. And everybody's got their challenges, just as Simon had mentioned, in terms of, no, it has a typical journey. I don't think the public service is immune to people that have, a standard and set way of being. We evolve, and the government is a really great place to be able to be curious and explore, but also to be supported throughout the challenges that one faces in their lives. So with that, I guess next person. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, by the way.
Okay, Emmanuel, you're up.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Emmanuel Mongin. Before starting, I wish to acknowledge that since I'm in Ottawa, I'm on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. So as you can see, all of us have different background and really different kind of career. Mine is kind of a mix of a lot of different things, and so I started with getting a master of macromolecular biology in the UK, and actually stayed in the UK for quite a while. I mean, in total 5 years. I worked there in Cambridge, so at the Bioinformatics Institute, European Bioinformatics Institute, a long time ago, and so right after my master, so I came in this kind of multidisciplinary environment with teams of physicians, physicists, mathematicians, biologists, computer scientists, like really working on the human genome at the time. So it's a really exciting time. I then spent a bit of time at Harvard. I did some consulting in Australia. Always kind of this kind of world of health science, like biology and computer science. So always really worked in this multidisciplinary teams for a long time. I then decided to do a PhD, came to Canada. I'm originally from France. Came to Canada to do my PhD in human genetics at McGill. So I kind of spent like I can't even remember how long, but I guess three and a half years there, or even 4 probably, working into the department, like Faculty of Medicine, but also Faculty of Computer Science. I really have this mixed background. And I kind of knew I wouldn't end up in academia. I knew that from when I started my PhD, and I had an opportunity after my PhD to work in science policy, more specifically the Council of Kenyan Academies, and it's a not-for-profit. It's really working with experts and like really providing the scientific evidence to the government. So that's kind of in a nutshell the goal of this organization. And it was really worked on lots of different files and social sciences and health, but IT, whatever, like whatever we had. I did a program director there, and one of my last the last report I directed was like the state of S&T and innovation in Canada. And so through this work, I got in touch, quite a bit with like my current department, like Industry Canada, and I kind of got an internship there. So I enter into the government in different ways, and then I think we all enter the government in different ways. And so for me, it was for an internship. So it means I was still an employee of my home organization, the Council of Kenyan Academies, but I was working for the federal government. And then I also compete. I went into competitions and I succeeded, and then I got permanent position, first as a manager, and 1.5 years later, acting director, and a year later as a director. So everything through competitions. So that's how I got into government. How my career, is linked to what I do now. I have teams of economists mostly, but I really started on the data side and data governance, but also like really helping to build the infrastructure to really inform our policy, like by really providing the right evidence for policy. And now my mandate extended quite a bit. So I have a policy shop and governance shop and a data shop, so it's quite in research shop too. So we do a lot of macroeconomic research. So we do so my days are really really interesting because there's lots of things happening. So yeah, just in a nutshell, a bit my experience, and yeah, happy to talk more about it.
Okay, and then now we have our final panelist to round everything out, Edna.
Thank you, Alexandra. I would like to acknowledge the land where we are now, and I would like to join my colleagues and the whole country on these very difficult times in view of the recent news. And I would like to make a special call to not ignore these events, but to act upon these issues. So this injustice won't happen again, especially for all minorities here in Canada. And I would like to say as well that the views and the perspectives that I'm sharing today are just my views, and they don't reflect the views of my organization. So as I mentioned before, I am an assessment officer at the Therapeutics Product Directorate, which is the Canada's regulator of prescription drugs for human use. Before authorizing a drug for sale in Canada, we verify that it meets the safety, efficacy, and quality requirements of the Food and Drugs Act and its regulations. So within the TPD, I work for the Bureau of Metabolism, Oncology, and Reproductive Sciences, which is the BMOS. This bureau performs clinical reviews of prescription drugs that are related to obstetrics, gynecology, urology, oncology, and metabolic disorders, among others. As a scientific evaluator or assessment officer, which is the same, we utilize our scientific expertise to review and assess drugs applications. The outcome of our critical and thorough assessment directly impacts the safety and health of many people. Hence, this job comes with great responsibilities. And some of the responsibilities I had so far in my division have been related as a leading clinical drug reviews, reviews of non-clinical toxicology consultations, human health risk assessment. We have been able to participate as well in the preparation of question period notes for the minister when it's required. As a career, this position is ideal for someone who understands science, enjoys applying scientific knowledge to the context of regulatory submissions, and has an active interest on being at the forefront of and safeguarding public health. So communication is central because you need to work in collaboration. You need to produce concise, brief, well-written, and oral as well. There is a great variety of opportunities and activities that you can engage. For instance, I engage as an ambassador of the Helping Communities campaign, which is a beautiful campaign that runs every year. We get together and we gather some resources to be able to help our communities. I have been working as well, participating as an ASTRA reviewer for the Science Forum. And now I'm managing the micro assignment of the crosstalk in the Science Integration Network. Additionally, I am division representative, my division representative at the SGBA Plus working group, which is the sex and gender-based analysis policy research partnership that Health Canada has. But as well, we are able to collaborate internally in Health Canada with the different bureaus and divisions. So all these additional activities allow me to integrate very well to Health Canada. Actually, I just started in Health Canada a year ago. And because of these interaction and these extra activities that are related with my work, but as well allow me to get knowledge in the different bureaus and interaction with the different divisions, have been able to expand my network within Health Canada. And together we contribute to advanced science and innovation here in Canada. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to all of our panelists for introducing their work. And I encourage everyone to either raise your hand or ask questions in the chat. We will also be queuing up a poll. So while the audience checks out the poll, I have one question for all of you just to get us started, and then we'll go to the audience questions. My first question is, did you know what you were getting into? Was this a planned move, or was this more of a kind of see what happens, learn on the job type of situation for most of you guys? Anyone can go up. Anu.
Oh, as I said in my introduction, it was not planned at all. I did not know what it meant to be a public servant. I had absolutely no clue. It was not something that was on my radar as I was growing up. I had very little, what I understood to be very little interaction with the federal government as I was growing up. And now I have a strong passion for public policy. I have a strong passion for what it means to have evidence-formed decision-making. I have a very strong passion for science policy and making sure that it gets into public policy discussions, and that data literacy, science literacy, and health literacy can find its way into other areas, because as we've seen with this pandemic, there's a very close, if not completely interrelated relationship between health and the economy. I learned at some point a phrase that's stuck with me, which is, we work on behalf of Canadians for Canadians. Not everybody in this country is a Canadian, however. So keeping those three kind of ideas in mind is what really drives my work and has led to diversifying interests within the public service. For example, like my colleagues on the panel today, there are diversity initiatives that are in the departments that I am in, both the Canada School of Public Service as well as in the Privy Council Office, where I represent on various initiatives regarding diversity and inclusion. I am a volunteer part-time faculty member of the Canada School of Public Service to teach diversity and inclusion, which go hand in hand, I think, with science and evidence, and where research will have to be, thinking about in order to better inform what public policy looks like. So all to say, I had no idea what I was getting into, but I certainly fell in love.
Yeah, same here. I had, I could have never imagined, like, especially as a science student, I would end up like supporting Canadian companies and companies to grow and innovate. It's something that's I'm a bit like, I know, I actually entered really late in the government, until like only 3 years ago, and I became really passionate about what we do here. It's like there's so many opportunities to do actually really different things, but also really help Canadians, in my case, help Canadian companies to grow. But then I could eventually move and go to Health Canada or somewhere else and help also Canadians in a different way. So it's something that I could have never imagined. But so before being outside of the government, I didn't really imagine the like spread of opportunities, and also really like feeling useful, and especially at this time of pandemics, we are feeling useful. I think all of us and all civil servants in what we're doing. So I'm really happy with the move, for sure.
Similar happened to me before I came to Ottawa 2 years ago, and it was only that moment when working at the Government of Canada became into my radar. Before, as Anu said, I didn't even have a clue what being a public servant meant, or how that would be involved with my expertise. However, as a scientist and researcher, I have been always keen to show how research discoveries in the lab can benefit our society. So the knowledge that I acquired doing research, acquired during my career, was evolving from academia, doing research that allowed me to understand human diseases. Then it led me to the experience in the drug discovery or drug development in the private sector, and now the regulatory stage for human use at the government. So it is nice to see how things are falling in place this way. I didn't plan it this way when I started my career, or my scientific career, some years ago, but I'm glad I reached up to this point, and now I can relate with the second portion, which is factors that bring me to this career, which are precisely my scientific background. The scientific background that I acquired, and the translation of knowledge into the regulatory policies that allow the uptake of the next medical therapies for Canadians. And now that I'm in the government, I have a wider vision on how my knowledge and expertise can contribute to the modernization of policies, aiming to improve the regulatory part in the department.
I want to add to that, Alessandra. Yeah, I mean, I think similar to all our panelists here, I think like somehow I knew I wanted to get into government because of the somehow challenges and inequalities I lived through my career. And I thought that in that position, I was able to probably provide a bigger impact being within government in all the policies and programs that affect science, or that science can actually provide that scientific advice and leadership into all the different aspects of Canadians' life. And in addition to that, one part is that I never even crossed my mind that I will end up at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Like that. Most of my work has been mostly in biomedical sciences and health sciences. So I never really see myself working at CFIA. But I mean, once that I was here, I found out how the amazing diverse work that the agency does. I mean, my role, for example, falls under the science branch, which provides scientific leadership, advice, and laboratory services support to the agency's missions and core responsibilities. And these core responsibilities include, safeguarding food, animal and plant resources, which enhances the health and well-being of all the Canadian people, the environment, and the economy. So as you can see, I mean, like the umbrella is big and diverse, and it is an amazing amount of work that is being done within the agency, which I'm really happy to be, involved with and be able to provide a bigger impact through the work that I'm doing and that the agency does as a whole. So.
For me, I think that is, as with most of my colleagues, even if I had wanted to plan this kind of trajectory, I don't think it would make sense to plan it like that. It's kind of haphazard, and you really have to stay open to different opportunities. Beware of tunnel vision. Nothing against tunnel vision in academia, but well, maybe a little bit. It can do that sometimes. Just trying to look back at sort of my first exposure with federal type of research. Even then, it didn't really click with me in terms of like a final sort of destination. I did a short internship at the NRC in Montreal during my bachelor's degree at McGill in one of the semesters, and yeah, it was definitely a very interesting experience at the NRC, a federal research institution. I ended up being more attracted to like the research per se, and then I ended up doing a master's degree and a PhD, and then not one but two postdocs. So I mean, I kind of got pulled into that with a lot of interest. I really enjoyed that the field that I ended up choosing, which was reproductive biology and human embryonic stem cell research. Very cool stuff. And but I realized actually, again, through CSPC, through my involvement when I did my second postdoc here at the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute, that there's something else out there. There's also an impact that scientists can have on society, and it's major, and it can't be overlooked. We can't be sort of, as scientists, in silos. Public engagement is very important, and I realize scientists are very, very busy. There are multiple barriers for more engagement with the public, but I think it's crucial. That's where the funds come from. Most of the research funds are public, and yeah, I mean, science is pervasive. It's everywhere, and we need to be a part of it. And for me, that was a contributing factor that I wanted to act in the public good.